Hello everyone and welcome to the course. Welcome to the advanced course on Adobe Photoshop. I'm really glad you're here. So in this very video, we're going to learn how to speed up Photoshop. Okay, so Photoshop sometimes tends to get slow when you're working on a big file. Okay, so especially if your computer doesn't have a lot of grace. And what I mean by a lot of grace is especially if your computer doesn't have, let's say, a lot of RAM or much RAM, or basically if your hardware isn't that good enough. Sometimes when working on Photoshop or when working in Photoshop starts to get slow, you get. So that's what we're going to learn how to fix in this video. Okay, so this project I've opened is from our fundamental course. Okay, so it's part of our final project. It's one of the things we handled in our final project. So it's a very simple project really, and if you're coming from that course, you definitely know this project. Okay, so I have basically opened this project to demonstrate some of the processes we're going to follow in order to speed up Photoshop. Okay, so it's not as if you really need this project if you are only doing the advanced course without having gone through the fundamental course. Okay, so this is just for demonstration purposes. Now, in order to speed up Photoshop, there are a couple of things we can do, and your problem might come from a couple of reasons. Okay, so we're going to talk about all of this or most of these in this video. So the first thing I will do is to come to edit and then go to purge. Okay, so if you go to purge, you're going to see these options, so you can just click all. Now what purge does is purge deletes your histories, deletes all the kind of cache that your project generates on your computer while working. Okay, so if you have big projects, it then means that these cache files, these unwanted history files and undos will be large, and they can eventually slow down your computer as you work. So first of all, just go to file, go to edit rather, go to purge and then all. Now if you do this, if you click OK, all your histories will be deleted, so it means you can't really undo again. So let's do this. For example, let's create an addition to this design so that I can demonstrate the purge option very well. So we have this guy here. Okay, I've created a rectangle, and let me just change the color. Let me just change the color to red, right? So it's now red, and let's now go to edit, go to purge and then all. Now if I click OK now and I kind of try to undo what I did, that's changing the color to red, so Ctrl Z, we then see that Ctrl Z doesn't work. It means our history has been deleted. So you can go to edit, and then we can now see that undo has been grayed out and redo also has been grayed out. Let's say I move this now and then come to edit, we can see that our undo is no longer grayed out. So it means we can undo, right? We can undo move, and you can see that it has undid our move. But if you come to edit, come to purge, and okay, we can now see that our undo has been grayed out. This is basically what our purge option does. It deletes the history, the cache files and all unwanted files that our project has generated, and makes Photoshop faster. So that's the first thing we need to do. Now the second thing is we can actually come to file, or rather to edit, and then go to preferences, and in preferences we have now a number of things we can do to speed up our computer. Okay, we can go to performance. Under performance, you see some options here. Now I'm going to go through all of these options with you and kind of show you what they do. Now we have this one which says memory usage, right? Now this shows us the available RAM. It's saying 11.8 gig, basically 12 gig here, but I actually have 16 gig on this computer, and it's showing us 12 gig because my computer has taken out, say, 4 gig for different purposes, right? So only 12 gig is available for Photoshop. It now tells us that the ideal range of RAM memory is 6.5 gig to 8.5 gig, okay? And we can see that my available RAM is way beyond the ideal range. And you can let Photoshop use a certain percentage of your memory. So for now, mine is 70%, which is about 8 gig. So you can either reduce this or increase this, you get. But just make sure you don't go lower than your ideal range. Yeah, so that's how to basically make sure Photoshop is running fast and getting the RAM it needs, right? So I'm just gonna keep this as 70%. So 70% is perfect. Good. So that's it for the memory usage. Now we have the graphic processor settings. Now this has to do with your graphics card, okay? If your computer doesn't have a graphics card, I'm sorry, but there isn't much you can do here. But if it does have a graphics card, you just have to make sure this use graphics processor is on. So it has to be checked. Then you can come to settings and make sure this and this are checked. You get. So that's how to make sure Photoshop is using your graphics card. And depending on how good your graphics card is, we can see that mine is an NVIDIA Quadro T1000, and it's actually a good graphics card for Photoshop. It's just perfect for Photoshop. Okay, so I don't have any lagging whenever I'm working. So that's that for your graphics processor. And then we have the history and cache options. Now we have the history state. It's set at 50 right now. Now this is how far you can undo or redo. And we can see that right now we have it set at 50. So we have 50 redos and undos. So we can take it higher if we want. We can even make it 1000. But you have to know that the higher the history state, the more memory consumption you get. The more memory consumption. So if you want better performance, you have to make it lower, maybe 20. Get. So that's one thing you have to know for the history state. For mine, I can just leave it at 50. 50 is perfect. Okay, now we have the cache levels, and for higher cache levels, we are going to have higher memory consumption. Okay, higher cache levels, higher memory consumption. And for small projects, you don't need a big cache level. So for big projects, you might want to leave it at 4, and for small project, maybe 2. You get. And basically, you don't want to go above this so much. You get. And then we have also the cache tile size. Now the same rule applies for the cache level, and we have this sort of preset here. Now we can see that as I just chose this first one, that's the web/UI design, we now have 50 history state. We now have our cache levels reduced to 2, right? And then we have the cache tile size at 128K. Now as we select each template, we see that we have different settings. You get. So huge pixel dimensions, we see that the cache levels increase to 6 and the cache tile size is 1024. Now, huge pixel dimensions. You want to select this when you're working on huge projects that use huge pixels. You get. So huge images, huge resources. So you want to use those kind of projects with huge sizes. Okay, and then for this template, you want to choose this template if you're working on normal projects. Okay, so nothing special, just normal day-to-day projects. So that's when you're choosing this one. And if you're, of course, editing photos, get. And then for this one is when you're dealing with light stuff. Okay, so maybe you're working with mostly shapes and texts. That's when you choose web/UI design template. So all of these can help you speed up your workflow if your computer doesn't have so much grace. You get. But if you really have a beast of a computer, you will not need to be adjusting some of these settings, because you won't even notice the speed reduction, okay, or the lagging. You get. So in order not to always come here and keep making changes, you can just stick to this one, that the default/photos. It kind of creates a balance between high tasking and low tasking projects. Okay, so you can just stick to this one and then click OK. Yeah, and there are basically a few other more things you can do in case you still experience lag after doing all of this. Okay, so it's possible that your temporary files have totally consumed all the space on your computer. So you will have to delete your temporary files or your cache files on your system. Okay, so I don't know how to do that on Mac, but if you're working on a Windows PC, all you need to do is to just come to your search bar here and type run. You can just click on run. Now it's going to open here, and all you then need to do is to type your percentage and then temp and then percentage. Just type this and then hit OK. You're going to have this folder opened. That's the temp files folder. Now, all of these files are not useful to your system. Okay, so they are more of like a waste product for your system. Okay, so they are more of like waste product for your system. So it's where your system just dumps all these unneeded files. So you can do yourself a favor by just selecting all, that's Control A, and delete. So sometimes when you have them accumulate, they can be very large in size. Okay, so we can see that I'm deleting over 2 gig of space, and sometimes it doesn't allow you to delete some files, maybe because they are related to the project we are working on currently. So if you do that, it can also help. And if after doing that you still have problems with speed, then I suggest you might need to do some hardware upgrades to your computer. You might want to upgrade your RAM. Okay, so it's possible to upgrade your RAM. You could upgrade your RAM to 8 gig at least, or 16 gigabyte of space. So these upgrades can really go a long way to helping you with speed. Apart from your RAM, you can also upgrade your ROM, that's your storage. You can use what we call an SSD. So an SSD is a kind of newer technology for ROMs, and it's incredibly faster. That's what I use on this PC. It's very fast, and even though it's more expensive as compared to your traditional spinning type of ROM, you're definitely going to get better performance if you use that kind of storage. Okay, if you use the SSD storage. Basically, these are the few things you can do to help with your speed. Okay, you can't really do much with the graphics card. You can't really change much of the graphics card. You can upgrade the graphics card, and that's according to the best of my knowledge. Okay, I'm not a computer guy, but from my own little experience, I know you can't do much upgrading your graphics card. So that's it for this one, guys. See you in the next one. Bye bye.